Hello, everybody. Welcome to Your Bread and Butter podcast. I'm Andrew Beaudry.
And I'm Ryan Cummings. Today's episode 47, what do you look for when hiring a financial advisor? And speaking of trying to find a financial advisor, do you know how financial advisors like to travel?
No.
In an investment vehicle.
What? Okay, stay tuned.
Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a registered broker-dealer. Member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors Incorporated, a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and Private Financial Design LLC are not affiliated.
Bread and butter.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Your Bread and Butter podcast. Today, we're going to be looking at what do you look for when hiring a financial advisor?
I think the goal today is to talk about some of the things that, if you have an advisor who's adding proper value, what are the things they should be doing? What are the things they should be asking? What are the things that they should be incorporating you into their plans and not when they're providing you the service you're paying for?
So recently we had someone come in who was a prospect. They weren't our client yet, and they were talking about their previous financial advisor. They were concerned whether they were good or not as an advisor because they went in and they asked the advisor to check their balance, and the advisor tried to push them over. So I don't think that was a really good idea.
Wow. Yeah.
But obviously that's a joke. But the truth is that we do have a lot of people come in and they do have current financial advisors. And sometimes they don't tell us they have a current financial advisor. They come in, they tell us about their situation, and then we ask them, do you have a current financial advisor? And a lot of times people say, well, yes or no, kind of, sort of, like, you don't get. And then when we ask them, have you gone back and talked to that financial advisor? 9 times out of 10, they're like, no, I don't want to go back to that person. So there was some breakdown in that relationship. So we're going to talk a little bit about addressing the core challenges that you have when looking for, as somebody who's listening, what are the core challenges you have in finding a new advisor?
For example, at our firm, we do try to recognize that no two clients face the same financial realities, that each individual or family arrives with their own unique set of challenges or aspirations or circumstances that do require a strategic and thoughtful approach. And so over the years, we've identified a lot of recurring problems in areas that each person may have, and we want to address those areas with care and expertise to create that strong foundation and that long-term financial success. Because at the end of the day, and we do have those clients that come in with other advisors that they've worked with previously. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes the revelation when they come in and we tell them what we do is oftentimes, well, my advisor doesn't do any of this right now.
Right.
So it's being able to weave in that whole picture. And if you want to see the value that can add, go look at our last episode, but be able to weave in that whole picture and make sure that you're balancing someone's finances with their goals, their needs, and their aspirations.
So one of the things that's common for people is that they don't really want to have to go through this big, long process of doing all these interviews and all of these things. And a lot of times it's really on a referral basis. And I would say a good 90-something odd % of our clientele come on a referral basis. And so I do think that this is a good way to find out who a good financial advisor is the referrals and the people that you know that are having some success in getting their financial needs met. So let's talk about some of the core principles that help you find a good financial advisor.
Yeah, we already alluded to it, but maybe perhaps the biggest piece of it is balancing your lifestyle with your financial reality. So, maybe making sure that you're being realistic, but at the same time, going for your goals and not having to necessarily settle, but, not overly aggressive pursue things where it can actually set you back. So, making sure that, each client's aligning their day-to-day lifestyle. You're not foregoing the fun things or the family time or the the vacations or whatever it might be, just to improve your financial picture, but also making sure you're not foregoing the future financial stability to have fun now and in this very moment. And so, for a lot of people, sometimes their finances are maybe too complex, or maybe there is too much emotion involved in it. We'll give some stories of some conversations with clients, but if I even were to think of one in the past, I've had conversations with clients in the past where we've had to go so far as to discuss possibly moving and selling their home. And that can be a very emotional and difficult conversation for a lot of people, because that's your home. That's where you live. But if financially it's this detriment and weighing you down every single month, one, you maybe shouldn't have gotten into that home in the first place. And two, it's something where you need to know when to make a change at a certain point.
Exactly. So our process actually begins, and any advisor's process should begin by, getting all of this income, the expenses, get some financial outcomes that are desired by the client, and put it into a clear, accurate, and understandable equation that also formulates their emotions and their priorities with it. And this analysis provides an unfiltered view of whether a client is actually living within their means and obtaining where they want to go, or are they overextending or missing opportunities and maximizing the value of the assets they do have. And so there's a certain, we've got two different sets of clients here. Let's talk a little bit about the two sets of clients.
Yeah, if you're maybe the set of client that's maybe operating more of a deficit, meaning your outflows are maybe not every month, but consistently greater than your inflows. You're spending more than you're bringing in, to put it in layman's terms. In these cases, that's where it can be the more difficult conversations, but a lot of times that's where it becomes a lifestyle discussion, a budgeting discussion, looking at your spending, looking at your habits. It's not always just about, hey, don't buy that cup of coffee. That's the one that I feel like everyone loves to gravitate towards. If you spend $5 on a cup of coffee, or even now it's, $8 a cup of coffee. But you're spending that per day, and not spending that is going to change your life. And it's not always that simple. Sometimes it's those bigger, like I already alluded to, those bigger lifestyle changes that need to happen. Or sometimes it is the small stuff, and you just need to make some tweaks, reining in a little bit more. And so we like to guide our clients through that process, try to be respectful of their needs, and come up with a practical strategy that's designed to help them through that transition. And either just rein in their budget, or even if it comes to that, having to get out of debt as well as part of that process.
Well, our second type of client is a client that has surplus, and they're on the other end of the spectrum. These are individuals that have a minimal lifestyle, generates a lot of cash reserves coming up, and while their discipline is admirable, they have way too much money in the bank that's not growing or doing anything. And for those who are out there getting that 4% on bank interest and have a whopping amount of money in there that they don't need, they just like the look of it in the bank, at 4%, depending on the federal and state tax bracket you're in, you could be actually only netting out about 3% by the time you pay taxes on that. So you're barely keeping pace with inflation. So we do have these clients that have a surplus, and oftentimes that excess cash is actually hindering their growth on their wealth. And these clients require a little bit more strategy, a little bit more asset allocation, and a little bit more perspective about what their wealth can actually do for them based on what their needs are.
Yeah, and this is a spectrum, right? We're giving you these two categories, but oftentimes a lot of our clients also lie somewhere in between, where maybe they're not in this huge surplus, maybe they're not also in this huge deficit,
right,
but they could be doing better. And that's where, regardless of what category you fall in, or if you're somewhere in that middle spectrum as well, that's where an advisor can add value in any of those areas.
And so when you're looking for an advisor, you want to find somebody that's willing to dive in and understand the whole nature of who you are. So if you go into an advisory meeting and for you, the arts are important, like, you really love, going to Broadway plays, or you love the arts and the museums and all of these things, and this is like a really big life value you have, then make sure that advisor is open to your charitable requests, open to help you get that. I mean, there's also those people who they love to hike, or they love a certain sport, and we had some clients that love tennis, and they said one of their bucket list items was getting to Wimbledon and watching Wimbledon golden match. I mean, that is so cool. What a great bucket list to have. So those are the kind of things, though, you have to incorporate so that the advisor's just not sitting there going, nah, can't do that, nah, can't do that, nah, can't do that. It's got to help them find a way to do it, help them work a way to make that happen.
Yeah, so I mean, to put that into the checklist, I mean, it's really finding an advisor that's working with all your goals, the short term, the immediate, but also the midterm, and then the long-term goals, making sure that they're looking at each one of these and balancing the two. Because for some advisors, especially, and it can sometimes be a conflict of interest, it can sometimes be focused more just always on the long term of, yes, invest more money, let's keep it there, let's keep it invested, let's keep it growing. And that's the plan perpetually. And that's, don't get me wrong, there can be some benefits from that, but there's oversight then with the other goals, the midterm goals, the short-term goals. And it's not always just about putting money away for retirement. Because even though you can't necessarily put too much away for retirement, if you're foregoing living a little bit now and, having fun things now, who just wants to save things for later, save things for future you want to find that balance. So I think that's where it's key.
Yeah, I think in Old Testament literature, in the book of Proverbs, there's a book in the book of Proverbs. There's a phrase that is used in there, and it says, hope deferred makes the heart sick. So if everything is just really long term, you get a little exasperated. And I've talked to marathon runners who run the Boston Marathon. Never going to happen in my life. But, they talk about having these midterm goals and these short-term goals. Like, I just got to get down to that street. All right. And then from there, then it's another goal. And if marathon runners can focus that way, and it's not just about, end of race, then maybe that's how we should look at our money too, to make sure that hope deferred doesn't make us sick and that we're getting to where we want to be. So you have to clarify, what are your midterm goals? What do you want your lifestyle to be? You also have to have the long-term goals to get there, but you have to translate that into something practical, something grounded. Investment strategies, asset diversification. Maybe it is a personal lifestyle change. I mean, there's so many people in the past where I come across and they're spending, $200 a month on, certain memberships and stuff that they hardly ever use. What's the point? You might as well align those ambitions with your goals and make the strategic decision to get where you want to be.
Yeah, I like to call that value budgeting. When we're looking at all your different goals, if it's, you maybe need to buy a car in the next year or two, on the shorter term side of things. Maybe you've got something more midterm, like you're paying for your child's college education in a few years, or you want to buy a home in 5 to 10 years. Or then you're also balancing in the long term, the retirement planning, maybe some extra legacy that you're leaving behind to the family or loved ones. You can kind of go through and somewhat rank those of what you value most to what you value least. And that's at least a helpful exercise when having this sort of discussion of, well, where do we find that balance to make sure that, even though maybe something, especially for someone maybe in my age range, retirement planning could easily be low on that value list.
Right.
It's far off, 20, 30 plus years. And that might be something that could easily be low priority. Now, you don't want to completely leave it off the priority list, but if it is low priority, well, what should you be doing now to at least make sure that it's, 20 years from now, you're not having to play catch up and, come back to that goal because you had it off of your priority list.
Exactly. And when you're looking for an advisor out there, you want to make sure that they include all of your goals, the short term, midterm, and long term. That's a really key element in searching for who you want to help advise you for your next step in the process. Now, taxation is a really big part of anybody's world these days because taxes, they are one of the biggest denominators and common denominators of loss of wealth.
It can be. And that's, we're not
CPAs, we're not tax specialists here, but we can see it happen.
Yes, and you've heard me say it in a lot of our meetings is one of the problems with some CPAs, not all, I don't want to throw every CPA under the bus, but with some CPAs these days is they're becoming more and more at least from what I've seen, more and more in the business of just doing your taxes.
Yeah.
Getting the paperwork in, getting the paperwork out. Now, like you said, we're not CPAs, so we're not doing our clients' taxes, but we do tax planning. We do try to look at their taxes, everything, their tax forms, as well as their taxable income that they're generating from their investments and everything in between. And find a way to make that situation as efficient and low cost as possible. Now, no one can avoid taxes altogether.
No.
We're trying to reduce them is key.
But giving guidance is very important. Just kind of giving them those guideposts and then going back to their tax planning professional and saying to the tax planning professional, hey, I need help with this specific subject because my planners have said. So again, this is a really important topic to actually understand as to how it might impact you.
Right, and even something as simple as, you already alluded to it at the beginning of our conversation today. Say you've got some CDs. Yeah, they're paying out pretty good interest rates right now, 4%, give or take.
Yeah.
That's all taxable interest. So after taxes, you're maybe down to 3% of what you're actually taking home after the tax is paid. Well, incorporating something like municipal bonds into your conservative piece of your portfolio might also yield you right in that 4% range, but it's tax-free.
Right.
And so there's a whole 1% difference on your conservative piece as just having, someone who's maybe going to walk you through some additional options for that money.
And by reducing your taxation on your tax return, it actually can help make the rest of your money less taxable. So instead of creeping up into these brackets. So maintaining your quality of life today, securing your future needs, this is an ongoing balancing act. It requires really a lot of vigilance, foresight, in-depth understanding of how the tax code changes. We have major tax changes here starting in 2026. And we want to be able to position our
clients. Even some in 2025.
And some here in 2025. We want to be able to have our clients and your advisor that you're looking for. You want to have somebody that is structured in the practice that they have where they can help you adapt, that you can enhance your returns, but enhance your lifestyle as well, that you realize your money's growing and you're not having the IRS knocking on your door all the time. So there's some future well-being in there, and that's not just in the present, but also for the future.
It is. And, I think that's, you hit it. I'll reiterate that last point is, you don't want the IRS knocking on your door and, getting that. No one likes that big tax bill come tax time. But also, a large refund's not ideal either. So we try to help our clients find that balance in between. But aside from taxes, another big piece of that overall financial picture that your advisor should be doing beyond just the investment management is the estate planning and some of the legal process, even though, again, we're not attorneys, so we're not providing legal advice, but helping with that whole legal process that happens at the end of your life when you do pass.
Yeah, and on top of that, even just current lifestyle, getting disabled and becoming incapacitated, these are all things that can disrupt the financial plan in a big way. And I just kind of give you a little kind of a hint here, for us, we find that a lot of married couples don't have powers of attorney for each other. And what people don't realize is that even though you're married, there's a lot of things you cannot do for your spouse if they become incapacitated, because even though you're married, you don't have a power of attorney. I mean, even a bank is going to turn you away if your spouse owns an individual account and you're not on it. You're out of luck. That's just the way it goes.
Bank accounts, retirement accounts, making changes to their accounts, all those sorts of things. Unless you're, like you said, unless you're a joint owner, you're not going to be able to do it either unless you're that joint owner or you have that power of attorney. So it's a key thing, especially for spouses.
Right. And for us, there's no reason for us to do this other than the protection of the client. And so if for us, it's in our firm, it's not optional. I'm suggesting here, you're looking for another advisor, you find an advisor that this is a top priority to making sure that the husband and wife or your life partner, whoever that is, or whatever's going on there, that you have a direct legal connection to them that allows you to function whether they're disabled or incapacitated, and of course obviously in death. That's a big one too, but there's just stuff while you're alive that you should have done. Find an advisory or advisory group or an advisor that actually makes this a priority. Make sure that there is clear directives for your asset distribution, mechanisms to ensure your financial and medical decisions are made according to your wishes, and protection for your spouse, your children, and other loved ones without having that unnecessary stress and financial hardship. And I'll add another thing to that is that we ask for documents from our clients on this. And sometimes people can be like, well, why do you need that? Well, that's because a lot of times when mom or dad get into a situation, we get a phone call from their children saying we can't find the powers of attorney. We can't find the healthcare proxy. We can't find the will. I mean, so we keep those things here, not because we have any kind of legal authority over them, but we can use that record keeping to be able to help those families. So find an advisor that really makes this work.
And I think the last point I'll make on this is that these conversations aren't fun.
No,
right?
They're hard conversations.
Death and the worst case scenarios for a lot of people. And so for a lot of people, they put them off just because of that. I mean, we even had some clients in here earlier this year that we were having these discussions with, and they said just that they just they didn't want to have these conversations, and they didn't, we kind of, pushed them along a little bit, nudged them to have the conversation. But I think the important piece to have it is, even though it might be a little uncomfortable now to have these discussions, it makes a future even more difficult time.
Oh yeah.
Much easier.
Yes,
by having these conversations now.
We've been in those situations where it was too late to do anything and paperwork wasn't done properly. And we've even had clients in the process of asking for their wills and legal documents. We've actually had clients who came in and said, yeah, we did this back in 2010, and they brought the documents in and none of them were signed. Mm-hmm. Not a single document was signed. They weren't legal. They weren't in effect. And on top of that, they reached out to find out if the attorney was still practicing, and they weren't. And the people that bought the business from the attorney didn't have any record of anything. So, yeah, it happens. Yeah. That's the real world. So let's talk a little bit about when you're hiring an advisor, how they view with education and the ongoing awareness. That's a really big topic.
It is. I mean, education's key. I always, with any new prospect that we meet, I'll always tell them that when we're having a discussion, and you're asking me questions, looking for advice, the last thing I want, now, even though some clients prefer this, but the last thing I want is to operate in the capacity of, oh, here's my advice, here's what I recommend. Trust me, I'm your advisor.
Right.
I want our clients to understand why am I giving that advice. They're being educated in here's my recommendation, but here's the reasons for it. And not only just speaking in maybe complex jargon that they just gloss over, but they actually understand it at the end of the day of, okay, now I understand why this advice is being given. You get more buy-in that way. And you get the individual, the client in that case, feeling more comfortable with those decisions and those actions. So financial planning's, not just this one-time event. It's this ongoing process that's constantly shaped by changing laws we've already discussed, like markets that change, global circumstances, and so on. And so, our clients, they often express a need for this ongoing discussions and ongoing educations. They'll call us all the time when different things are happening in the world or in the economy or politically and so on, and they'll look for our advice to help give them a little bit of that peace of mind, like we alluded to even earlier in today's discussion.
That's part of the reason why we do our podcast as well, is we're trying to keep our clients very informed and aware, and they have constant access to us. But, this whole thing about, you just said, the one thing I don't want to do is, well, I'm your financial advisor, so you should just listen to me. It reminds me of when I grew up as a kid, and it might be it's past generations, but in my generation, it was, well, I'm your parent, you're going to do what I told you to do.
Right.
So that doesn't really work very well.
Yeah.
I don't think in parenting. That doesn't work very well in financial planning, because basically, we can give advice, but the whole phrase of you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. The people that do drink the water and the people that do benefit from it, that's great. But it is still a choice, and I think that's the best thing, to educate to the point of decision.
Yes.
Give them and then whatever decision they make, like if those folks, I remember the conversation with our clients, if those folks had decided that they didn't want to talk to their children about it, didn't want to do it, that we would honor that, but we at least let them make that decision.
Right.
It's their decision. So I think some of the key areas, let's talk about key areas of what you do and what we do in ongoing awareness.
Yeah, so it's when it comes to this ongoing education, we're talking regular updates for laws, estate planning requirements, investment opportunities. We're also looking at the practical education side of things, so planning techniques, whether it's budgeting strategies, debt repayment strategies. So that way people are confident and engaged in their financial journey. And again, understanding our recommendations, not just following them blindly. And then also the the global and domestic insights. So when we're looking at the economy, what do the things that are happening both economically or politically, what impact do they have on your finances? And what, should you be worried about and what should you not? It's a lot of our job is sometimes, not so much warning people about things that are happening, but more so calming them down.
Yes, exactly. Exactly right. And I think part of the whole dynamic of understanding how the global world is so economically connected is a vital part of, particularly for the younger generations, to understand how integrated we are. But I also think on the practical education side of things, we oftentimes, and this is a financial advisor firm should do this, so this time of year we start getting these summaries of the capital gains that have been achieved that are reportable on, for people's clients' tax returns. So we start taking some of those items and start talking to our clients who might be doing Roth conversions or other income tax sensitive decision making, so that they know this is where we're heading for the end of the year,
or even just year-end quarterly payments.
And to make a plan to make sure that quarterly payments are proper. Because again, as you said earlier, you can have an overpayment and you've just, you're going to get 20 grand back from the IRS, but it was wasted 20 grand because you didn't get any return on it. So I think these practical education elements are really important for ongoing advisory relationships.
They are. And like we were saying, it helps people make those more educated decisions and feel better about those decisions.
And even though it's an overused term, it is a holistic approach to financial success. Everybody who's out there, 15 years ago talking about, I'm a holistic planner, it doesn't diminish the power of the word. It's an advisory group that integrates into your whole financial life and how it impacts your family, your dreams, your wishes, the people you care about. How does it all integrate with where you want to go and what you want to do?
It's important, and it's where advisors really add value, and it's where they really provide people with long-term financial success and growth in their net worth, and not just their investment account. And oftentimes planning this way gives more I think personal satisfaction to the client.
We go back into the 1950s and 60s and even into the early 70s. The United States government, after World War II, put together a whole plan on creating better, more efficient and effective farming in the United States. And what they would do is they would do all this research from all these different colleges and universities, and they would send these people out to the American farming groups and teach them new techniques. Not necessarily, the Monsanto fertilizer kind of stuff, but I'm talking about like planting techniques, timing, elements to teach our farmers how to grow better product, more product, efficiency, all of those things in farming. And it had a great impact on our agricultural element of our economy. And so that's really what financial advisors are doing. They're helping you grow your garden, help you grow your farm. Because after all, that is the modern day farming for all of us, is our investment assets. And what we do with our career earnings is we earn our hard-earned dollars.
To your point, can't be there for, we can't be there to control every aspect of our clients' finances. So a lot of it is, like you said, we try to bring people to these conclusions, give them this advice, and make it easy enough and simple enough where they can go out and implement that advice. Because while we can do some things for our clients, we can't do everything. We can't call up the bank for them. And
No, I mean, when you're balancing budgets to navigate taxes, planning for the future, protecting your loved ones, everything's connected. And you're not isolating just the risk of a portfolio or missed opportunities. Our firm actually does bring this whole approach to all the elements in trying to make a cohesive plan, provide clarity, security, confidence. And there's 5 areas of concern as you look for advisors. Let's sum those up.
It was that lifestyle balance, goal setting, taxation, the legal and estate planning process, and then constant education across all of those different pillars. So if you're looking for that advisor and you see your advisor does a lot of or all of these things, then you can know that I think you're getting, a solid value add, and, they can help provide this empowerment and help you achieve your aspirations and everything in between.
Absolutely. So thank you for listening today. We hope this has helped you in searching for an advisor and what it can do for you. And remember, live today for the tomorrow that's in your heart.
Because you'll never have more time to plan for tomorrow than you do today.
Thank you for watching.
Bread and butter. winner.